Can I ask you to join me in something? Can you cup your hands like this? Okay. What I'd like you to think about is, it's coming close to Christmas time. What would be a really special gift that would be able to fit in your hands? I like that some of you are closing your eyes and you're even imagining something. Would any of you like to share what that special gift is? No takers? Credit card. I like it, Solifera. Keys to a new car, that's great. Winning lotto ticket, that's really good. Thanks for participating. In many families, this is a special gift. You might think that this baby is sleeping peacefully, but it's not. It's actually struggling for life. It's a premature baby. That premature means that it's younger than 37 weeks. And it's battling to breathe. Why is it battling to breathe? It doesn't have enough body fat to be able to regulate its own temperature. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever had that problem, but some of you might have, and that's why you need to get into that buffet just now. I can guarantee you in 5 minutes' time, you're going to be wondering, what is Ronald on about? How does this relate to procurement and to supply chain? And in 10 minutes' time, I'm hoping that you're going to be starting to connect the dots. And then when you go home and you're driving in your car or in your shower, the ultimate goal for me is that I'll start provoking you to think about transformation in procurement in a different way. We've all been programmed to deal with problems and to come up with solutions in a certain style. I'm going to be hopefully trying to stretch you to think about things a little bit differently. I have the privilege of working, as you know, for one of the most innovative banks in the world with a number of times, as well as with an exceptional team of thought leadership, going to plant some seeds in terms of that thinking. Every 10 seconds, the world loses a newborn. Roughly 15 million babies a year. 3 million of them die within the first 28 days, and millions more grow up, as you can read for yourself, with debilitating health issues. The leading cause of deaths in minors under 5 years old is a result of premature babies being born. They carry certain ailments and everything through. Now, why is this relevant? Certain countries, like India and Nepal, have got the highest mortality rate amongst the globe. You probably think that that's a little bit logical, because India, due to its size of its population, they should have a high mortality rate, but they account for a third of these infant deaths. And Nepal, which has got quite a remote landscape, you all know it for the Mount Everest and for the guys that go there to climb, etc., has also a very high mortality rate amongst newborns and a very significantly high rate of premature babies. So now put your supply chain hat on and your procurement hat on. If you were confronted with this problem, how would you go about immediately thinking around solutions? Does anyone want to be bold enough to perhaps give me a thought? There is no right or wrong answer here, so don't feel that you're going to be embarrassed in any way. I'm letting you think for a second, because I can almost guarantee you that with a supply chain hat, you're going to be thinking demand and supply, trying to figure out what is the problem and how can I create a supply chain solution to solve this problem. So what do these babies need? And again, I'm just coaching you down this path. What do you think they need? Anyone want to take a guess? What would help you? Incubators. Oxygen. You're spot on. Nice one. So, big thing that premature babies need is that they need incubators. Incubators are a very successful solution to saving premature babies' lives. And on the right-hand side, you'll spot that an average incubator costs about $20,000 US. There are some constraints. They need to be operated by a trained nurse or a doctor, so there's perhaps a little bit of a curveball. And also they need constant energy supply. So that might pose a problem for certain geographies. We won't mention any of them aloud. On the left-hand side, there's just some data points that's going to be relevant to where we're going to go in the next couple of slides. Is on average, remember India's got a big problem with this challenge, is 5,000 to 10,000 rupees per day for a family to keep a baby in an incubator in a hospital in India. What that equates to, here's your CIPS theory coming through in purchasing price parity, is that's about 60 to 120 US per day. And if you bake that into rands, that's about 2,000 rands. It doesn't sound too harsh, hey? But 2,000 rand is perhaps quite significant. So, cut a long story short here, this problem was actually posed to the world community, and a supply chain solution was actually brought in. They literally did a study across India. They said, how much of these babies need incubators? How many hospitals do we have? They even did advanced studies to actually see the territories that these hospitals were in, and they went out on a major procurement initiative, and they bought incubators. After a while, every hospital was adequately ramped up with incubators so that theoretically could meet the demand, and it should be making a significant dent in the mortality rate of these infants. Do you think it worked? No. So I'm seeing some of your heads and nod why, and I've given you some clues. What they didn't figure is that in India, there's 1 doctor to 2,000 patients. Now remember that constraint on the incubator, that you actually need high care. You need someone to monitor that incubator properly. So now you've got a challenge where you actually don't have the healthcare workers that they manage this equipment. But then they actually went a little bit further, and they discovered that there's an additional complication. The problem wasn't having the amount of equipment in the hospitals and all of that. The problem was actually that these babies were getting to the hospital too late. So remember in Tolofellow's discussion now, that was that interesting end-mile thing about using that. That was playing out here. Is what was the root cause for why these babies weren't getting to hospitals quick enough? And then the overall one is a pure commercial one. The average daily wage for a person in India across the board is $2.15. Remember, they need at least $60 to $120 to keep their babies in a hospital. So there's a fundamental disconnect here. So here I am as my fancy supply chain person. I've created a very logical and cool solution. I've met the supply and demand, but it's actually met the wrong requirement, the wrong root cause. Have you ever had that, perhaps in your careers, where you've been asked to purchase something or to supply chain something, but you actually realize that this thing's not quite actually going to meet the solution that you actually need to solve? So then they thought, okay, let's tackle like one of the problems. Let's try and figure out a solution where we can get the babies from where they're born to the hospital quicker, because that's an obvious root cause. And they mobilized an army of helicopters, and especially in Nepal, they tried this out. And what would happen is once a baby was born, they'd fly a helicopter out, immediately pick the baby up from the mother and bring her to the hospital. Do you think it made a difference in the mortality rate? No, and especially the ladies are saying no. And just out of interest sake, would you want to venture an opinion as to why? Okay, that's a good theory. And again, there's no right or wrongs. Eh?
I would say maybe one of the root causes of premature, maybe the female was supposed to take
nurturing.
when they are pregnant to reduce the number of premature babies.
Perfect.
Taking the right medication when they're pregnant reduce the risk.
Okay, so now you're going down a great path, because you probably wouldn't have heard that, but it's a lot about the mom. It's about the nutrition, it's about the self-care, and it's about having the mom in this. Now, interestingly enough, they went down that path as well. And in no ways in any to try and create the wrong perception, but a lot of what happens in India is actually genetically disposed as well. So even though the mothers could get great nutrition, but a lot of these didn't, there's still a very high prevalence of that. But where you were going absolutely down the right path is there was big concerns when these helicopters would arrive that they would take the babies away from the mother. And with premature babies, a key determinant of success is actually having that nurture and control. So let's introduce this lady. This is the hero of our story, a lady named Jane Chen. And at the time, she was actually at the Stanford Institute of Design. And she now heads up an organization called Embrace, which we're going to talk about. Why they approached Stanford? Stanford's one of the top organizations in the world that come up with designs to solve unique problems. And what they came up with is a combination of a very cool design, but where its thinking came from was from supply chain and procurement, which I'll explain in a second. How it started was understanding who is the customer. So remember, when they were trying to solve this problem originally, they saw the doctors and the hospitals as the customer. They thought if they can get incubators and equipment into their hands, they're going to make a dent to this problem. Their actual customer isn't the doctors or the hospitals. Their actual customer is the mom. The mom will do everything in her power to save her child. And they needed to find a solution that would make that practical. Then in understanding this mom is afraid of Western medicine. So they found out if a Western doctor said to the mom, you need to give this prescription to your kid, they would halve the prescription. And they would only, because they didn't trust, they think always that Western medicine wasn't appropriate. They also had to appeal to the community. The picture on the far left-hand side is in rural areas, people will make a plan. So there's an example where there's a coal stove underneath a bed where they've got the baby wrapped up. So they also needed to find a solution that could work for a slightly wider community. And then where you were going, the gent over there, they've also discovered, and you'll see this when you're going to a lot of hospitals, you'll find them strapping the premature baby often to the parent. And the why is that nurturing makes a huge difference. So these guys started thinking, no, hang on a second, we've got to change our whole approach to this. We're focusing on the wrong thing. So what did they come up with? This was their first prototype. It's basically a baby sleeping bag. And in the back, there's a heat gel that you need to heat for 20 minutes. And it will stay warm at the right temperature, not fluctuate up and down, for up to 4 hours. And it only costs $20. The other stuff that I haven't put on the slide for you over there is that this thing can be wrapped up into a very small package, so it can be delivered to very remote areas. That little black box that you won't see quite clearly on your picture over there, that heating pad is the big white thing. The little black box actually had a temperature gauge, and it will actually show when it gets to 36 degrees, and then the mom knows that this thing is right to be used. Now, in intersect, do you think this worked? Okay, it worked to a point. And why? Is because remember that thing around the fear of Western medicine and that? What was happening is that heat gauge that would take it to 36, the mom would only heat it for 10 minutes and keep it at 20 degrees because she was worried that the baby was going to get burnt. The top of the gear over here was a little bit cumbersome. And then they discovered that as good as this is as an innovation, it doesn't also meet the requirement of that nurturing thing. So then they came up with a second prototype. And this is the one that's actually in existence at the moment. You'll notice some key features over there. It's got these open tags where you can put your hands in. You'll see the whole one side. You can actually slip your hand in. Doctors can access it. Well, what I don't have to show you here is that heating pad they changed from where it actually shows the degrees to a simple thing of green and red. So now the mom knows red you can't use it, green you can use it. So they really created some design thinking to be able to do this. Remember this organization, Embrace, you can find them online. Over the last couple of weeks, I've seen their devices being used in extraordinary places, in the Ukraine, in Gaza, and it's been saving lives. And at the moment, they've got clinical evidence where they've saved 465,000 babies. Now, what in the world does this have to do with transformation to thrive? Just as that baby needs to go through a journey where it transforms, and if it transforms and gathers weight and everything, it's going to be able to thrive. The same with us. The 4 thoughts that I want to leave you with is, how can procurement make the world a better place? Now, you might think, geez, Ronald, that's really philosophical. Last year, 3 years back as a bank, we got heavily involved in the COVID phenomenon and also supporting government and hospitals. For the first time in my life, I started realizing how procurement can make a significant impact and how we can change the world. But it doesn't have to be something dramatic. The procurement team, by taking out a box of paper from waste, 10 boxes of those papers can actually save a tree, all the way through to when you've got green energy that's in play and others. So what am I wanting you to do is, when you start thinking about how to transform your respective spaces, is how can we change the world to be a better place? Ties very nicely to my group and my bank, so I have to plug them. So we believe in this, how can we help you? And how can we create an environment of shared prosperity? Is our whole goal is to do this. Now, you're also thinking, why? Why should I do that? Why should I even spend some time thinking on this? I've never seen our staff at the bank so motivated in procurement as when they got involved in this whole vibe, in seeing how they can contribute to making the world a better place. Then you'll remember from this story as well, it's about focusing on what is your real customer. I think we get caught up with our own propaganda. Is we are quite successful in what we do, but what do our customers really think about procurement and supply chain? And what can we do to make that better in the next 5, 3, 10 years, that we are fundamentally different? If in 10 years' time, will we sit in the same room and look at ourselves in the same way? Are we using technology to make things simpler? My colleague's presentation, you saw that's a big thing. Technology is becoming a huge enabler, and it's going to step change what we do. And then also, what's really passionate for me is, I've been 28 years now working, as you've heard. I've got a responsibility to make sure that the young staff that are in our space is, what kind of future am I leaving them? Is this profession still going to be relevant for them? And how do that? And I'm hoping that if I can give you some of these thoughts as well, that you'll do the same. I'm very confident that within this room, there's thought leadership that can then take us forward. The last concept that I'd like to talk to you about is the whole focus on proactive versus reactive transformation. The space that we want to be in is where we're leading the transformation and we're not seeing the transformation being done to us. There are many disruptors in the market. The one that I would like to talk to you about that's coming in our way in a big way, across Amazon's entire business chain, what is their fastest growing business capability? I'll tell you, it's a thing called Amazon Business. What is Amazon's business's goal? Amazon Business's goal is to displace corporate procurement and supply chain. Why? Is because exactly like you've played with Amazon in your retail capacity and bought stuff as a personal consumer, that offering is getting now given to corporates. So what can happen if they can come to you as a corporate and say to you that we can actually create these types of efficiencies for you? This is not funny stuff I'm putting up there. This was a study done by Forrester, and understand they are still very much in the infant stages, and they're operating predominantly only in the US, but it's coming across the globe shortly. What are they selling? They're selling exactly like in the retail space. Ronald, you don't have to worry about onboarding your suppliers anymore. You've got 35 regulatory requirements to handle that you want your suppliers to attest to. I handle all of that for you. I do it once for you across the globe. You buy software from me, Ronald. Ronald, you buy 100 different types of software. What happens if I can give you one place to buy that from, Amazon, and I give you one invoice with 100 line items? Imagine this time I save you in terms of your accounts payable and your recons and all that. Now, where am I going with this? This is not a scary story or that kind of thing. I am signaling to you that within procurement, there are huge disruptions coming. It's up to us to get ahead of those and to figure out where we're going to play and how we're going to play, how we're going to turn them into opportunities, and how we are going to transform to be able to deal with this new world. Last quote I'll leave with you is fairly common one, and hopefully it's not a cliche, is change is inevitable, but transformation is a choice. Think about transformation in slightly different ways, and then it'll be amazing to see what results we come up in the next couple of years. Thank you.